claims of abuse of authority, inauthenticity, and convictions of changing doctrine. These are just a few of the reasons as to why we now have so many denominations of the modern Christian faith. But where did it all stem from? With so many branches of Christianity, it's important to understand where Christianity originated and where it fractured. So today I'm going to be walking you through how Christianity originated, what led up to the Great Schism, how the schism formally occurred, and where Christianity sits today because of it. Now, I was born and raised in the Roman Catholic faith. I was baptized and confirmed, and I've not only done this research to satisfy my own curiosity, but also to help teach you all here today. So let's start with where Christianity originated. In 325 AD, Christianity was a network of local communities that were set up by Christ's apostles, and those locations were founded in Rome, Constantinople, Alexandria, Antioch, and Jerusalem. These locations became known as the Pentarchy, and each location had its own bishop that ruled over its respective location. Rome, however, had seniority over the other sees, and this is because the first bishop was put in place by Christ in Rome, and that was St. Peter. So now that you understand how it was set up and what the power dynamic looked like, it's going to be easier to understand just how tension began to form. And this wasn't just one disagreement, it was centuries of animosity between the Pentarchy. So let's go over just a few of the reasons as to how this tension came to be. The first is that the Eastern Church, which consisted of all locations except Rome, placed many of their beliefs and values in Greek philosophy, whereas Rome placed its beliefs in Roman theology. Now, another dispute between them was the bread that should be used for the celebration of the Eucharist. And the East believed that they should be using leavened bread. The risen bread to them represented how Christ rose from the dead, whereas the West used unleavened bread. And this was the same bread that Jesus used during the Last Supper. Perhaps the most famous dispute, however, was the Filioque controversy. And Filioque quite literally translates to "and from the Son" in Latin. In 589, the Filioque was amended into the Nicene Creed, and this amendment implied that the Holy Spirit not only proceeded from God the Father, but also the Father and the Son. Now, the Eastern Church wholeheartedly rejected this notion, and to put it into the words of Dr. Stephen Nichols, who was featured on an episode of Matt Whitman in the 10-Minute Bible Hour, he says, quote, "The Eastern Church saw this as a hook to hang their hat on, that they could point at the Roman Church and say, 'You have changed tradition. You have amended the Nicene Creed,'" end quote. Well, now that we have established how this tension came to be, let's go over how the schism officially occurred. And that was in 1054, Pope Leo IX sent a papal delegate to Constantinople and delivered a bull of excommunication to Cerularius, who is the patriarch or the bishop of Constantinople. And in response, Cerularius sent a delegate of his own back to Rome and excommunicated Rome. So now that those have occurred, we can see that they are now formally split. They are two separate churches. Over time, the name of the Eastern Church ended up adapting. It became known as the Eastern Orthodox Church, Orthodox meaning right belief in Greek, whereas the Western Church remained the Roman Catholic Church. So now here we are centuries after these events, and we can see that Christianity sits a little differently because of the schism. According to survey data that was pulled in 2011 from the Pew Research Center, there was approximately 2.2 billion practicing Christians worldwide. 50.1% of those Christians identified as Catholic, whereas another 11.9% identified as Orthodox. This results in about 62% of Christians, and that number is 1.1 billion Christians and 26 million Christians respectively. And that leaves about 38% unaccounted for. And that 38% is known as the Protestants. And the Protestant faith is likewise has fractured from the majority and has since broken down into even smaller denominations of Christianity. Now, my goal today was to teach you something that you didn't know about the schism. And we can track these events from the church being united as one body to unrest among itself to functioning as two separate institutions, and now how it's a mosaic of many churches. But despite the separations and the rift that has come between us, all Christians are still united as one, because after all, we are all still children of God. Thank you.